the flow state. Now, if you've been around sports for long enough, you probably heard the term before. What does it actually mean? Well, I'm here to tell you what the flow state is and how you can actually, get into the flow state and what that actually, means. Makes sense? Now, the important thing to realize is the flow state is not something that you're gonna just turn on and turn off at will. It's kind of a subjective experience that we'll talk about how you can actually get into and embrace, and the criteria that can help you get there. But even if you meet these criteria, it doesn't necessarily mean you'll get into the flow state, but it does give you a good chance of experiencing the state of flow. So let's talk about one of the major components about being in a state of flow: challenge and skill level. Now, being in a state of flow is not going to magically make you be able to do things that you've never been able to do, such as, it's not like turning Super Saiyan, where you're gonna be performing 2 times better than you have been. In fact, you're pretty much going to be performing, marginally better than you would when you're having a good round. But it's more of like a mental and performance state that you're in. So you are performing better, but it's not a switch that you can just turn on. So you're not going to be playing from the white tees and suddenly you're feeling like you're in a state of flow and you're like, I'm gonna move back to the blue tees. No, in fact, that's the opposite of what you would wanna do. So let's talk about how do you determine the challenge and the skill that you need for a state of flow. Turns out I could get there. I swung too hard. You get into the flow state with anything that you were doing. It just requires, meeting the right criteria. And for skill, it has to be kind of like what is the story? The too hot and you can't enter the flow state. The challenge is too difficult. Too cold and you get too bored. The challenge is not enough. So you need it to be just right. And that's where entering the flow state in golf can be almost near impossible. It hit a sprinkler. Now, having the right difficulty settings for you to be able to have a chance to even enter a flow state, and I say a chance, but it's more of a subjective thing, to have a chance to enter a state of flow, where you're going to have a lot of things going well for you at the right time, including your skill level. So let's take this shot for example. I'm walking up, I'm feeling very confident. You see it on the channel all the time. I hit this. It's not really that much of a challenge for me to actually hit it in the fairway because I do it every single time. So walking up to it, I'm thinking this is just another fairway to hit. However, if you take the last few holes and the last few shots, for example, I've been playing like ass. So the difficulty today, even though it has not changed because this is my home course, I play it all the time, it has changed. The difficult thing with golf is the difficulty is always changing. Now, the elements, it could be windy one day, they change the pin locations every single day. The greens could be a little bit faster, they could be a little bit firmer, they could be a little bit softer. The wind could be blowing north, it could be blowing that way. So many different factors that you can't control. In addition to, I just may not be feeling up to the certain task today, so I'm not performing at the skill level that I know I can perform. And therefore, you're never going to enter the flow state, or can you? One of the key things to being able to match the challenge is your knowledge. So let's take this live for example. I need to know how do I hit this ball so I can automatically just walk up and I feel confident enough in my ability to hit it out of this rough. What is going to happen? And it's not going to throw me off of my loop by being in this. If I am playing perfectly and then I hit a bad bounce or some bad luck happens and now I'm in the rough, that could throw me out my flow state if I don't know how do I handle this. And now all of a sudden you were all on autopilot and now you were all thrown off. So you need knowledge of how do I play in all the different dynamic elements that can affect golf. And that is just one criteria to being able to rise to the challenge and perform whatever skills that you need. I am playing like ass right now. The other factor is you need to be able to be playing with the right people, with the right mindset to be able to perform optimally. Now, it's not to say that it's impossible, but let's say you are the best person in your group. Everyone is spraying it all over the place. Are you going to be able to rise to the challenge of whatever is necessary. Versus if you were playing with people that are better than you or slightly challenging you, I'll talk about that in another part, you're going to be able to activate the skills that you need a lot easier than you would if people are just either way better than you or way worse than you. Or you could be playing alone and just challenging yourself. Like golf always is, but you get the point. Look at that. Now what we need to do to break down skill level is break down the many different categories of performance in golf. For example, putting is one of them. That was a terrible putt. Let's say you have putting, you have off the tee, you have approach shots, let's say around the green. All of those have to be performing at your optimal level to be able to enter a flow state. But how do you do that? Especially when there are factors that are going to contribute to your performance designed based on the course. So if the course is very tight off the tee, your tee shots may be not performing at the optimal level. Or if the greens are very slopey, you may be having a harder time needing to putt, to focus on putting versus off the tee at that course. Let's talk more about that. I'm only using golf in these references, but you know, it's a golf YouTube channel. Let's take a very standard golf course. Nothing too crazy, doesn't require that much precision off the tee, greens are pretty flat, yada, yada, yada. You will need to be able to perform in all areas. However, let's say the last round you went out and your driver, you were just spraying it all over the place. Well, in between that round and this round, you will need to have worked on your driver to feel more confident in your skill level and performance off the tee. Even if the course is very flat, even if it's the same as usual, conditions are fine, you will need to have performed recently with your driver and practice it so you feel more confident to be able to hit those drives, even though the course has not changed. Oh, come on, bad bounce. Alternatively, if you feel like I'm only good from within 150 yards and you're leaving yourself 160, 170 yards out, you're not gonna be able to enter a flow state because your skill level is going to, because your performance and the challenge of that course that day is not going to be able to, you know, arrive at that skill level. You're gonna be thinking too much about, oh, I'm not good with wedges in my hand recently. I've been having the yips. I got a wedge in my hand. I'm knocked out of that autopilot that I wanna be in. So you need to be able to perform at all levels. I could be automatic off the tee, but as soon as I get this wedge in my hand, I'm thinking too much. No longer in a flow state. With being able to enter that flow state, the next time I go to the driving range, maybe I gotta work on my wedges a little bit more. Oh, that flew. Huh. That was a really good strike though. If you take a pro at a practice round, well, if a pro is hitting it well at the practice round, they're learning all of the intricate areas of the course, and they are figuring out their weaknesses to raise them to more strengths, they're going to be able to perform optimally next time they go out and play. Versus the guy that is going to the practice round and he's not even warming up, he's not even really paying attention. He's going to be thinking a lot more than necessary to enter that flow state because he doesn't know the course. He hasn't practiced what his weaknesses are. Additionally, your skill and focus needs to be on performing the objective and not what is my swing doing? How do I focus on my swing? Am I gonna make good contact? Those kind of thoughts. Because, and I'll talk about this in the next part, the challenge needs to be on performing the objective that you are setting for yourself. So my skill needs to be on what do I need to do to complete that objective, not how do I even hit the ball. Does that make sense? A brand new player, you're probably not gonna enter a flow state. Now I know it's relative and subjective. Not saying that you have to go out and shoot a 59 to enter a flow state. You can still shoot a 91 and feel like you're in a flow state. It is all relative, but in that flow state, the challenge and the skill is pretty balanced, right? Your skill is feeling comfortable for the challenge that you are currently facing. Therefore, I'm not worried about how do I actually make contact with the ball or anything along those lines. Does that make sense? So practice with repetition, focusing on a certain objective, it's easy to get into a flow state, as long as you are building the skill enough to repeat that experience. I can hit the 70-yard shot all day. However, it's not necessarily efficient practice, because that doesn't necessarily translate into on-course practice. But it is good for getting and building a routine and a rhythm. But a shot like that can just throw you right out of the flow state pretty easily. So one of the most important parts to being able to enter a flow state is recognizing, well, what areas am I lacking? So when you're warming up, I can sit here and realize, okay, well, wedges, I can enter a flow state, just repetition, mindless, and that's fine. It feels comfortable. I get to a 7-iron and it starts to feel a little bit more uncomfortable. I hit my driver feels comfortable, so then I would want to focus on my 7-iron, right, or my mid-irons, whatever it is. But I can focus on my weak point before the round, so then when I get to the round, it's strengthened a little bit and I've practiced working out those kinks versus I am out here, I realize that it's my weakness, and then I get onto the course and I can't do it because I haven't practiced it. And that's the same thing if I'm practicing all week and I realize, oh, my driver is not working. What do I want to do? I want to hit some drivers and figure out what do I need to do to get it to a place where I am feeling more comfortable with it. And I think a flow state really comes down to comfort as well. Maybe that's another criteria. Because if I'm spraying it all over the place, I'm never gonna feel comfortable, because I'm always gonna feel a little bit anxious of what's going to happen when I hit this ball. So in conclusion, the flow state is not just a switch that you're gonna turn on, turn Super Saiyan, and go about your business. And now you're shooting a 58 out there when normally you shoot a 94. That's not gonna happen. The flow state is only a state of being at, let's just say, a ideal, optimal performance where you are just kind of essentially going with the flow. And everything feels like it's on autopilot, but functioning at 100%. Now, the way that you get into that is, one, your skill has to be able to be up to par of whatever challenge that you are experiencing. Now, if the challenge is not enough, well, it's going to be too easy. It's going to be too boring. It's not going to be engaging enough. If the challenge is too hard, you're going to be focusing too much and getting beat down, getting your ass whooped by the challenge, and that's going to be too much. So if the challenge, you need enough challenge to where your skill is going to have to come up to meet that challenge. So you're going to need to be firing on all levels to meet the challenge that you are trying to experience. And it has to be engaging. You're gonna have to find a way to raise your skill level to wherever the challenge is. So if you're about to go out on a tournament weekend and you're figuring out, okay, my driver is really slacking, everything else feels really good, you're gonna need to work on your driver to bring it up to the proper skill level, so then you're not overthinking, how do I stand over this ball and actually hit it down the fairway? It just feels good, it feels confident, you feel natural with it. If none of your skill is at that point, well, you're going to need to do a lot of practice to bring it up to where you're meeting the criteria to challenge yourself on the course at that course. You could be doing Excel spreadsheets and still get into the flow state. You could be doing laundry and get into a flow state. It doesn't have to be a sport, and it doesn't have to be a competition. It could just be, I'm out here practicing and going into a flow state. So anyone can go into the flow state, but you need the right challenge and the right skill to be able to do that. And hopefully this video summarized that, but I'm summarizing it at the end for the people that I want to actually sit through the video and learn. Because people don't want to learn nowadays, that we experience most of the challenges that we do in this world, because people just want instant answers and instant gratification. They just want, give me, what do I do? I just want to turn the flow state on. I just want to be able to do that. And that's the problem with y'all.